be saying the invocation of the pledge this morning. Bow with me, please. Gracious Heavenly Father, we come to you this morning in our humble selves. Lord, we ask for your peace. We ask for your peace that is beyond all understanding, and it's always sufficient for whatever need there is. You are the peace speaker, and we know that, Lord. You can control the winds and the waves and the storms, and we ask that your peace encompass our town, encompass this room, encompass our residents. Lord, we ask for your wisdom today, your strength, your love, and your compassion for each other in the city that we love. In your holy name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Pledge allegiance to
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Roll call.
Debbie?
Present.
Art?
Here.
Jackson?
I'm here.
Hill?
Here.
And Kirby?
Here.
One quick question. Do we need to do the vote for the necessity of COVID-19? Okay, I don't have that. in
So
front of
moved.
me. Thank you. Motion by Mr. Kirby,
Second.
second by Mr. Jackson. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Debbie?
Aye.
Art?
Aye.
Jackson?
Aye.
Hill?
Aye.
Kirby?
Aye.
Thank you.
Passes 5-0. Ordinance number 204419, facial coverings mask order. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Jackson.
Second.
Have a second by Mr. Kirby. Roll call.
Debbie?
Aye.
Art?
Aye.
Jackson?
Aye.
Hill?
No.
Kirby?
Aye.
Ordinance number 204419 passes 4-1. Herman, I'll go ahead and let you speak.
All right, thank you. The reason for the vote was because we discovered that actually, when it was first discussed at the work session, so when y'all met Wednesday, that came when you introduced the ordinance. So today, public notice, you have now adopted that ordinance, okay? 4-1. All right. My understanding is,
Hear you and understand what you're saying.
I'm sorry,
Would you please remove your mask?
I will not.
Hear and understand.
I will not, I'll move it up some. What I said was, on Wednesday, the council introduced this particular ordinance they're considering. Today, they voted on the ordinance, adopted it 4-1. I appreciate, I want you to hear, but I also want to wear my mask. All right, thank you. You hear?
I heard that part, but I missed out on all the voting.
All right, I appreciate it.
Voting on
All
all
right.
that kind of stuff, because it's just not all that.
All right, thank you. My understanding is the mayor has something he wants to discuss with the council regarding any suggestions. Oh, I'm not, thank y'all.
Thank you, Herman.
So procedurally, would it be better, Harmon, for them to take up the original, or should I look for it?
They've already voted the
Just
original.
passed it.
It's done? Okay.
It's done, so now, what my understanding is the mayor now has some suggested changes to the ordinance he wants to discuss with you.
Thank you.
Ms. Hill, Mr. Ard, do you have a copy? I'm not sure.
Herman sent me one.
Let me ask if they have it in front of them. Ms. Hill, Mr. Ard, do you have that in front of you?
I do not, but I will pull up my email and look for it.
Okay.
I have mine.
Okay, thank you.
You let me know when it's safe to proceed.
Go right ahead, sir.
Got it. I've got it. I have not reviewed it,
Okay.
but
thank
I've got it in front of me.
I'm gonna walk through it, Councilmember Hill.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so I'm Tab Bowling, and I'm honored to serve as mayor of the city. And first, I'd like to thank the council for all the time and effort you have spent on this initiative. I truly believe the goal behind this ordinance is to promote the safest environment possible for the citizens of Decatur. I have literally heard from and spoken to hundreds of citizens, probably like you, of Decatur that are passionately split down the middle on this issue. As a general rule, I'm not a fan of government mandates, but we are living in extraordinary times. I respect and understand this issue is very emotional, no matter your opinion on this ordinance. I am prepared to sign the ordinance if the council will make the following modifications: that it will expire in 30 days and can only be extended in increments of 30 days, and then only if the state health officer deems Morgan County high risk. That the age for children be adjusted from 2 to 8 years. That the city will encourage the use of masks through educational efforts and by making masks available free of charge to all citizens who are unable to provide one for themselves. I have sourced 3-ply masks and have found a supplier that can provide them for 79 cents a piece. We can have 20,000 of them delivered next week, and I would ask the council to authorize the purchase of the 20,000 masks. My thoughts would be to have our fire and police departments distribute them at designated locations. And then last, that the maximum fine be reduced to $25. So it would still be $1, no less than $1, and then the maximum amount would be $25. I would like to say again how very sorry I am that the need to mandate mask wearing is upon us. For weeks, healthcare professionals have been encouraging and practically begging individuals to wear masks to slow the spread of coronavirus, so to not overwhelm the hospital and medical community, and yet people refuse to wear them and infection rates continue to soar. At the most, if not all of you know, our positive test Thursday, if not all of you know that our positive test Thursday was at 63 compared to an average number of 21 cases daily. That is most concerning. Councilman, you looking to see what it is today?
No, I was looking at
Okay.
a different number.
Okay. Several of you who oppose this ordinance did not be this council. Okay, I'm speaking to the residents of our community and surrounding communities. Several of you who have opposed the ordinance have threatened to shop outside of Decatur, and that's certainly your prerogative. I suppose it's meant to punish city leaders by affecting sales tax revenue. I would encourage you to think about that further and ask yourself who you're actually hurting by taking that stand. The action will especially hurt those small businesses who are struggling to survive. One of the reasons I've decided to sign the ordinance with these changes is because I want to avoid another shutdown of our economy, which would be devastating to our community. Finally, I implore the citizens of Decatur to be respectful of each other. This is uncharted and scary territory for all of us, and we're doing the best we can. Please grant us grace. Please grant grace to your fellow citizens, to this council, to me, to our state and federal leaders, and trust that our intentions and actions are for the good of everyone. Council, I would respectfully ask that you discuss, consider a vote for immediate consideration. I hope that will be unanimous so I can get this ordinance signed today and we can begin wearing masks. Thank you for your time.
Please allow me to go first, if I may.
Sure,
First thing.
I like the same opportunity as well.
sure.
First thing, I got texts from people at home watching this that could not hear what you were saying, okay? But looking at what you're presenting, 1, 2, and 4 have already been debated before this bench. Where we are is because of the reasons of what came out in that discussion and what everybody else had found out by contacting the State Department of Health and other people about what was reasonable to do. The number 3, this is an unusual time, and I'm not opposed to the city spending the money to buy masks, but we live in a highly entitlement environment, and we're not technically in the mask business. I'm not opposed to it per se, but you'll have people lined up for miles to get their share of free masks when you start that. It's a path that just doesn't go anywhere any good.
But I'd like some honest disclosure. Who recommended these changes? It wasn't you.
And Charles, let me answer one of those questions. And to the betterment of the city, actually, the Morgan County Health Department has already ordered masks, and they have several thousand that are here now and will be here Monday. Ms. Judy Smith and I have spoken about getting those out, and she suggested the fire and police as well. So those masks are already paid for by the health department, so I'm not quite sure that that will have an effect on our bottom line. But go ahead, I'm sorry to interrupt, I just wanted you to know. those are
Understood. And
provided.
that's a valid point. But I'd like honest disclosure, who these changes are coming from.
That came from me.
No, they didn't.
I won't go in the middle of that debate, but let me say this. If the city decides to spend money to buy additional masks, and I hear you, Paige, that we have already have a source of providing masks for our citizens. I won't oppose that at all, and I'll agree with that, not as a contingency upon what we're doing. I just think it's the right thing to do if we need to do that. The other issues that are on here, when Herman presented this to us the other day, one of the key points that he made to us was that if we were going to do this, that there needed to be regional consistency, that the other communities who were doing exactly what we were trying to do, we should remain consistent with them so that you don't have to wonder if you go to Madison County, or you don't have to wonder if you come back to Morgan County. And consistency was a big thing. And so when we discuss the age and all those factors that are in this, the 30-day increments, we are going to review this after 30 days. And if we feel that the threat is gone, we will take that away. But you watched the same press conference that I watched from the governor, where it said that each community will decide what's best for their community. And to leave this, to send this back to a state level where they would decide what's good for us when they're actually telling us that we as a community have to decide what's best for us as a community, I think that's sort of a contradiction. But the $25 fine, that's going to be the judge's discretion. So I don't have necessarily a problem per se with any of these, but I do know that we looked at this in an approach of being consistent with other communities, and that's the biggest thing. I'd also like to say that there's a 3-2 vote. It's been said that this would hurt our revenue stream. And in my opinion, many of the protests that came here came from people who were non-residents of the city of Decatur. We have a threat for this to be vetoed by our mayor. And, you know, excuse me one second, I'm not talking about, I'm not talking about.
We actually had a 4-1 vote.
No, but
Mr. R.
before we had a 3-2 vote. And I'm not talking about our mask ordinance. I'm talking about our smoking ordinance. It was the exact same situation. It was a 3-2 vote. People said that it would hurt our revenue stream. Our revenues went up because people actually realized that this was ultimately what was best for our city. And I think ultimately people will realize that this is what's best for our city, that we have to try to maintain a consistency as far as protecting our citizens, and that's exactly what we're doing. It's nothing to punish anybody. It's nothing to push anybody to another community and make purchases in other communities. I was in Walmart. I had to go to Huntsville yesterday, and I went into Walmart in Madison County. Every person in that Walmart had a mask on. I didn't see anybody, complaining about a mask or anything else. It was just what their expectations were. So I think that as we lay out our expectations and this becomes the norm for our community, it will be just like in Madison and in Huntsville. People will adhere to it because most people have a desire to follow the rules of the land. And most people are going to follow whatever guidelines the community puts out there. And these are the guidelines that the body has considered as being the safest and most protective for our citizens. So I think that most people, just as a matter of nature, they are going to comply with this, Mayor. And so I just ask that you look back at September of 2007 and see how closely this relates an ordinance that was so volatile and separate our community right down the middle. The smoking ordinance did that. We were the largest city in the state at that particular time to adopt a smoking ordinance. We weren't the first, but we were the largest. So there was something that, we were out on a limb. Huntsville hadn't done it. The largest cities had not done it, but we were the first. So we had an opportunity, in my opinion, to put Decatur out there, and it was not a race, but to put Decatur in a leadership role and say, we care about our citizens. We're going to put them in the forefront, and we are going to pass this mask ordinance, and we've dragged this thing out, and in my opinion, we politicized it and made it turn it into something that it should not have been.
This open to the public?
No, sir. My comments would be the 30-day increments. I believe in yours, Mayor, it said that it would have to be 30 days. So what if we get past the 30 days, but 10 days after we see that we have a break in it, that we can actually pull it back early? But the way yours is worded, it would have to be in 30-day increments. You could not break it up. So I would have a question with that because it could hopefully end sooner. Mass provided.
Let's see what, can we end it sooner than, so if we could adjust the language.
Again, I think what Mr. Jackson has said that we're listening to representatives from the hospital.
Well, I'm talking about what you're saying, though.
I
You know,
agree
the
with
point that
you.
you make, I want to try to work with
Okay.
getting this signed.
Yes, sir, and, you know, the original document, I believe, has those in mind. We've spoken with medical doctors, the hospital, and others who have said, have given us good guidance. The police chief, whom is still in the executive role as far as the state of emergency, which we are currently in still. And mass provided, as I said, the health department, Judy Smith has been wonderful, has gotten several thousand of those with hand sanitizer and a bag that you can put all together, which is a great thing. Thank you, Public Health, for that.
Absolutely.
The 8-year-old, I'm with Mr. Jackson on that. I think you stay as a standard. I am not a medical doctor, and that is what the medical doctor, Dr. Harris, is suggesting in his wordage. So therefore, I think we stay consistent with other cities in North Alabama. And then the fine, I go back to Mr. Jackson, and I said it the other night, that is not our or yours or anyone other than the municipal judge's discretion. So we give him a variance from 1 to 500, and it's at his discretion. He can actually give warnings every time if he feels the need to do that. And I have no problem with that
Sure,
because
just reduce the
we
amount.
are, well, but he should be the one to decide that. Because what if you have someone that
You
comes
wouldn't
in
increase it.
and is a chronic, what if someone has gone in and been ugly in someone's store or business? That is up to him. He is a judge. Again, I'm going to yield to the judge who has way more experience in that
No, you're
avenue
not.
than I do.
You're putting a $500 max on that.
And
I'm
I
asking
think,
you to reduce it.
I know, but I think the judge, Judge Cook, should have that ability if he feels that is what that fine should be.
And
You know,
may I just interject? He can't exceed that $500 fine, but he can go anywhere between there. So if he decides to give a warning or if he decides to impose a $1 fine, he has the discretion to do so. So I'm just simply going to ask that, based on where we are now, we had, over the past 24 hours, we had 2,164 confirmed cases of coronavirus in the state of Alabama. And the thing is that number is growing all the time. And I would just ask, I actually plead with you as a mayor to sign this because each day that number is growing. And the fact very simply is that, the state representative who spoke at the press conference that you and I have spoken about, he said that any protection is better than no protection. So I think that the science is there that shows that this can protect our citizens, but even if it did not pan out to be a total protective measure, any protection is better than no protection. And that's kind of where I am, and this is a very minor protective measure, and I just ask that you will sign this.
Ms. Hill or Mr. Ard? Can we let them, Ms. Hill or Mr. Ard? Ms. Hill?
Yes,
Go ahead, Christy.
Yeah, well, I'm not opposed to purchasing some masks for people who can't afford one or just our community who wants one, but I will continue to stand against the mask ordinance for those in my district and those in the city that do not think the government needs to mandate it. But I appreciate what Mayor proposed and the conversation about it.
Mr. Ard?
Yes, I've always said that personally, I believe people should be wearing masks, and the reason that I was against it was because of the impact that it would have on our businesses. I've finally said that people's health are more important than that. But more important than that is that we come together to figure out a way to implement this today. Because what we don't need is another 10 days for waiting for signature, veto, or whatever. We need it signed today. So I would encourage my fellow council members to work with the mayor to come up with something that he will sign today so that we can get the ordinance in place.
If I may, and I will, as a show of good faith, withdraw my previous question, Mayor. I do want to know why this wasn't presented at any of our 3 previous work sessions on this, but the only part that's different than what other people are generally doing is number 1. So perhaps if you could explain to me why you have a problem with the 30 days we already have in there. My mind's open to negotiating is that exact wording, as long as it's still about 30 days, as long as it's not permanent.
Sure. And I'm good with the 30 days. And then if we need to put something in here, like the council president noted, that if something changes and we go to we can do something in 10 days, then we can make that, have the liberty to make that kind of modification. Please do not let number 3, as it relates to, so if the council president has a source for masks, let's don't let that hold us up, okay? But for the age, 8 years, I'd like that to stay, and then the maximum fine to be reduced to $25.
Well, again, I don't think anything, 2 and 4 are negotiable at all because it keeps us consistent with the other communities. I think Mr. Jackson makes a great point. But on the first one, what is it about what we currently have in the 30 days you don't like?
I don't have the first one in front of me.
Basically what it said, is y'all getting out in, what the president said. Basically what it says, y'all can review it at least every 30 days, which means that you can come back at any time during that time and amend the ordinance or send it, or say it expires. You got that freedom in the present ordinance.
Does the current ordinance say 30 days?
Yes.
It said it will be reviewed at least every 30 days.
Yes. And well, I'll look at it.
Section 2 duration, last page.
Okay. Okay, so then probably nothing to do there.
I don't think that there's a council member here who intends for this to be anything permanent. I don't think anybody wants it to be permanent. That was never the intent. The intent originally, when we initially started discussion, was that could be terminated in a very short time frame. And I think that is the intent here. The intent is simply to prevent illness, to save lives, and hopefully this virus, is over with sooner than we expect it to be. But this allows us the opportunity that when we see that trend start to decline, that we can end this. It's very simply that, and I think that was the intent of every person who read this and every person who gave input to this insisted that this not be a permanent measure.
I would like an answer to why this wasn't presented at one of the 3 previous work sessions.
That's irrelevant. I'm presenting it now. This is the
I
time
agree with
whenever.
Mr. Kirby, I'm not sure, or why did we not get it last night or
This
this
is my time
morning?
to end up having the opportunity to address the mayor's side of
Yes, sir,
the
but
ordinance that you.
I would have felt you could have provided it to us earlier today. Sir, we're not having comment from the public. I would have thought you could have given it to us earlier than as we walked in, but that's fine. But that, again, I'm not sure if you read the ordinance that we passed that's been out there. The 30-day has been in that, so I guess we can take that off your list.
Yeah.
The mask, I don't know that any one council member is opposed to. We do have access to free, several thousand. And John, we'll do this like any other thing that would come up. I think we would probably need to bid it out because we want that to be along the lines that the state requires the municipalities to do that. So we would go on a bid, but you could come to the council with a request for money to pay if you wanted to. No? Oh, that's right, we're under the emergency.
Emergency
So,
guidelines.
but you would bid that out, to be fair. Not quite sure who the mayor has his contact with, but we would absolutely by law have to bid that out. 3, the age, I go back to the age. I am not a doctor, and I would yield my wording to a medical doctor. And Dr. Harris being the state medical doctor, I'm not quite sure why there is a problem there. I understand small children, I've had two. And sometimes, like Mr. Jackson says, if you tell them to do something, if you're an authoritative parent, they do what you say. Sometimes they do not. But, again, it is for their safety because as I was watching the news yesterday on some reports, they haven't done a lot of really data on young children. So I don't know how it affects them, and I don't think that the medical doctors do right now. So I just want everyone to be safe, and I think that everyone needs to realize we don't make the school system's rules either. So if the school starts on August 12th and requires children, whoever goes to school, which could be 5 going to preschool, 6 kindergarten, to wear masks, then I think we're on 2 different pages. So I think we need to be as one. So that could be something that was discussed with the school board, because to my knowledge, I believe they are going to require those masks, especially on buses. And the max fine, again, Herman, I don't even know if we can change that. That is not that's the municipal judge's decision.
No, you've set a number.
And
You set a number at 500.
The state, actually, state AG gave the number.
And that's a max number again, that is a max.
The $1 to 500 is already in our city ordinance, under our general fine provision. You can establish a fine different than that, as long as it's not more than 500. But that language is already in there, so the judge has that discretion. That means he can fine from $1 up to 500, or he can not have a fine at all. That's up to you. All we're saying, if you put the $25 in there, you're saying Judge Cook, that's the maximum you can fine. So you take away his discretion to do anything above 25.
But he can also, Herman, have the discretion to give everyone a warning and not issue one ticket.
Yeah. It can be
So,
zero.
yeah.
It's not requiring him to fine.
And I'm going to piggyback on this. If this is the only thing that I think this feels as if, I don't know, trying to back the council into a corner to only pass it because of your provisions, which again, we've been talking about this for weeks. And that's fine if that's how you'd like to be. But I would like to say that anything that Judge Cook does assign as funds, that we give those to our community health agencies, the free clinic, the health department, the other places. We do not keep any of those funds in our city coffer. And I believe we can do that. We can write that in as well.
No, you don't do that in the ordinance, you do it by resolution.
Okay, well, we can do that by resolution. I say that none of those funds go into the city. They go, again, to those agencies that have to do with mental health and public health and free clinic. And those agencies, I believe those agencies are in desperate need right now for help as well. So I think we help those out. I think it's unfortunate that we have to come to this before this to pass. But, without
I'll say this, that's a very good suggestion that I've not heard before, and I would agree with that 100%.
Thank you, sir.
Let's also not lose track that we've already said this was very parallel to the smoking ordinance. And I wish we hadn't been stuck doing the smoking ordinance. Since, again, it's something the state should have done, just like on this, it's something the state should have done. But we were told how people would continuously not be forced to not smoke in buildings, and when I asked Chief Allen the other day at our work session, they don't recall a case in the last 5 years, which tells you nobody's paid a $500 fine in the last 5 years, okay? People got used to following the law. Now, if somebody gets out there and gets aggravating to the judge, yeah, he's certainly entitled to hammer him, and I encourage that to happen if somebody just tries to flaunt the law in our face. But the fact is, this is being blown out of proportion of what could be and not what is.
Well, if I can decipher what the real difference presently is children between 2 and 8. This ordinance, the mayor proposes, says, no, we're not going to require any child under the age of 8 to wear a mask. We're going to say to the parent, you have discretion. The ordinance that y'all adopted changes that to over the age of 2. But they still have the discretion, it's still there. It's just a question of whether you're going to require someone between the child between the age of, we'll just say 3 and 8 to wear a mask.
to the guidance of the parent.
Well, Harvey, let me ask this then, since we could adopt that, I assume, if we have to get it passed, to get it into law. But when the school system starts in about a week or so, they're requiring masks for children that will be under 8. So, you know, we would not supersede them because to come into their facilities.
That's in your ordinance already, we're not trying to regulate.
Right.
the
Well,
school system.
I think that's my question then. If we know that some children under 8 are going to be required when they start school to wear masks, I'm not quite sure why we're not at least asking the school board to have ours aligned with theirs. You know, I mean, we're in this together, and so if,
But
again,
That's a question, that's a good question, but that's outside my area, that's a good question.
well, I have spoken with President Duke, and that is going to be required of children, all children that are on buses and go to pre-K all the way up. So, you know, pre-K could start at 4 or 5, and they're going to be required if they are on a bus as well to wear a mask. So I think for me to even consider this, we're going to have a discussion with the school system to be in alliance with them, that you don't have 2 different laws. That makes it confusing, and I think that's one of the problems that the public's having with now. There's so many different angles, and it's just confusion. Why in the world would we make it more confusing about when they start school and if they have to wear a mask or not? Because the school system is going to be over that anyway. They dictate that, not us. So I just think that should be in line with the school board.
Why'd you make it 2?
I'm sorry?
Why did you elect to make it 2 years old?
Because that's what the state
Consistent.
health director stated, and he's a doctor.
On the suggestion of free masks, I have a question. Does just virtually anybody get them, and how many?
I think that some communities have given them, Charles, have put them in with their police department, and when a police officer approaches someone, and I've said before, I don't expect our police department to be saddled with having to chase people down and, you know, confront people about that. But if an officer goes in and they have a conversation with someone and that conversation leads to one where the people are wanting to be compliant, they have them on hand that they can actually offer them. And I think a lot of communities have gone to that, and I think that's something that we could work with as well, just like other communities. But I just think that this is, you know, and I know that people will take this completely out of and distort it however they want. But the situation that we're in, and I've said this to you before, is we're going down a road we've never been down before. And so the fact of the matter very simply is that if we have to modify, if we have to do things a little bit differently, if we have to kind of see what other communities are doing that might be working for those communities and not working for ours, then, you know, we have to kind of modify those things to make sure that we're at all times trying to prevent the spread of this virus and to bring the numbers downward instead of allowing them to continue to spread. So I am open to suggestions about how we dispense the mask. And I think it's important that we just keep an open mind about how we're going to do things and be willing to look at things in a different way. But I do think that we need to get something on the books today and make things happen. And so that's kind of where I am.
I appreciate your position, and thank you for your leadership role in this.
Thank you.
And again, it has passed the original ordinance 4-1 that we've been going to the mayor. So I guess I'm looking for, again, I've said my reasons of, I think the 30 days that we've worked out, the mask obviously are being provided for by the health department. If we need more, John, I think that's going to be easy, not a problem. The age may be the still difficulty for me, only because I think we need to at least have a conversation with the school system and be compliant with what their recommendation is and what they will require on August 12th, I believe. And that's coming up soon. So I don't know that we have 2 different standards for that. I don't know if anyone's opposed to being the same as the school system. Is anyone opposed to that?
So could I ask a question?
Sure.
Could we get to immediate consideration? See if we can get a unanimous vote on that, and then go
On
from
which
there.
item?
I think we have to work out before we immediately consent,
You
yeah.
gotta have an ordinance that people introduce. That's what we're working on.
So I think we have a few things to work out. For me, it's going to be that we have to work with the school system to get the age thing down. That to me is not appropriate to have two different ages when we do not dictate the school's rules.
That's going to prevent us from being able to get something signed today.
Not necessarily, Herman. We can pass it on contingency after speaking with the school system, can we not? And we can align our age with their age?
I don't know what that,
We can ask their school age, what ages their requirements are going to be for masks, and we could just be alongside them.
well.
That shouldn't be
you
that
got-
tough.
The general public needs to know what the age is. I can go,
But couldn't we alter that after the fact, get the ordinance started, and then alter the age after the fact?
oh, yes.
Okay,
Amendment.
This ordinance could be amended at any time. In fact, that's what we're talking about right now.
good.
I think Mr. Jackson's made a great point previously. Right now, this is about how many lives will be saved. Every day delay right now is putting lives at risk.
So I don't have a problem with if we amend, once we find out the school system's rules on who has to wear a mask, their students, that we amend that to them.
All right, so I'm not, all I'm trying to do is just facilitate. Mayor, is that acceptable with?
Well, can we just go into a recess? And we recess and find that information out and let's get something done?
I don't have a problem with that. I'll call Ms. Duke and I'll call Mr. Satterfield.
That's fine, then we can adjust the ordinance. But now, please understand, it's going to take immediate consideration and a vote.
But
And I don't have a problem with the recess, but I do have an obligation to get to, which I'm already running the time deadline to get to at this point. I can come back, but I'm just saying, what's the net effect of doing now?
So you've already voted immediate consideration and it was unanimous. Then you voted for the ordinance at 4-1, and then you allowed me to talk. So I guess,
We didn't actually vote for immediate consent today because this would have been the second time. We did actually vote for the COVID, and then we voted for the ordinance. And it passed 4-1. We did not vote for immediate consent today.
But I'll say this, I don't mind having the discussion regarding what the school system's plans are. But I guess I just have concerns that we are postponing this thing for any amount of time. And I think that it's important that, yeah, we have discussions with not only the school system, but everybody. And that's what I said, we've got a moving target here. I don't have a problem having those discussions, but we need something that's not being held politically, I'll say. It's not being held.
it's an age of trying to be reasonable in what age you're going to require a child to wear a mask.
And I think that, as I said earlier, this ordinance was patterned after what other communities have done, what our state medical advisor has asked of us. And so I think there's a basis for how we got to that point, Mayor. But I think too, though, that it's important, it's imperative, not just important, but imperative, that we adopt this thing and get it going. And if we have to make modifications to it at a later time, at a later date, then we do that. And I don't think anybody's going to just shut you out and say, we're not going to make modifications to this. I don't think that's going to be the case, especially when it comes to the ages that you're discussing. Mrs. Bibby has concerns about what school systems are going to do, and I don't mind entertaining that. I do mind postponing this for another day, for another hour. I think that we need to get this thing in effect.
So I'm not trying to postpone it. If anything, I'm trying to get you to adopt it and sign it today. I'll sign it today, and I'm good with.
I guess my point is, I don't mean to cut you off, but I guess my point is, you could sign it today, and we work with contingency that we are going to look at what the school system and others are doing. I don't have a problem looking at that.
Thank you.
I don't have a problem looking at that at all, but I do think that for basically this ordinance to be held hostage, based on the fact that we have not put the age limit into play right here, right now, that concerns me.
I'm trying to be a facilitator once again. I'm reading from the ordinance that's been adopted. It says that parents, guardians, and caregivers, children between the ages of 2
And
and 8 shall exercise their own discretion regarding the ability of those children to consistently effectively wear face covering or mask. So basically what it's saying is, it's up to those people that are responsible for that,
And
to make that decision.
So essentially, a
It's already-
5-year-old, their parent can make them wear a mask, and they are not breaking the law because they're wearing a mask.
Or they can allow them to not wear a mask.
Exactly. That's exactly what it says, 2 to 8.
The mayor is no one under the age of 8 has to wear a mask under any circumstance.
But essentially, is that not saying the same thing? It's giving the
Goes down
discretion to the parent?
to the parent's
It's going to be
discretion.
up to the parent.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is, I think it's already
Addressed.
consistent with what the mayor's asking. So,
Then I have no problem with that.
required of him.
I have no problem with that.
Unless y'all are saying it's an child, age 3 and above, does not, under any circumstances, have to wear a mask. That's the only difference. You're boiling it down to, that's the major difference.
I'm certainly not gonna tell a parent they can't protect their child, so I'm not gonna ever vote for that.
But you're not mandating, but even then, if they can say they're not able to wear one, then they don't have to wear it.
But we're not mandating at all 2 through 8, correct?
You're letting them,
Yes.
Discretionary.
We're deferring that to the parent.
right,
So really, 2 through 8's not wearing a mask unless their parents put that on them. Okay. All right, well, I will ask for, the only way I will vote today is on someone to introduce a resolution that all fines will go to public health needs such as the health department, the free clinic, the mental health association, things of that nature. We need to be specific, I believe, in
Yeah, I
that
think we need
nature.
to be specific as to which agencies that go to.
Right.
But, and I think that, in my opinion, I think that we can address that. But, you know, we've openly stated, for the record, that this won't go into the city coffers. This will not go into the city coffers, that will go to those nonprofit agencies, and we'll decide on what those agencies are.
I would
So-
ask that you consider the free health clinic.
I would agree with that most.
I didn't.
y'all have a special call council meeting at 4:45.
Okay, so we can
I
do
would
that
ask,
then.
yeah, that you look at the free health clinic.
Give us input.
I said the free clinic. They were the first ones I mentioned.
And I concur with both of you guys. I think the free clinic has to be included in that. But I think that we can submit the names of the nonprofits that we want to do, and that's something that we can hammer out at a later time. But we're saying publicly that these dollars will not come into our city coffers, that they're going to go to those agencies that we choose. And I think that should not be a hang-up here. We should just be able to move forward.
I'm
And
with
Herman
you on
just
that, just
pointed
so-
out that we have a special call meeting Monday.
At 4:45.
And John, can you
That we can
provide,
get that done at that time, I'm sure, can't we,
can
Herman?
you provide to all council members allocations in the past that would have to do with healthcare, any type of healthcare, mental health care, the free healthcare? Thank you.
And as far as the decision goes, Councilman Jackson's correct. We can set up a designation that fences off that money.
Perfect.
You don't have to know exactly where it's going when we start collecting that. At some point, we'll have to decide, but it's not.
Perfect.
So the way Herman read, and forgive me for not being a good reader, the age limit, I'll apologize and call the way that it's in there now is acceptable. So if we can just get the fine amount resolved.
I think that, Mayor, I think that we've compromised all the way out. Now it appears that you're not willing to compromise.
Yes, I am. I've compromised. I've struck of the 4. I've knocked out 3. I've agreed. So I'm just asking for the fine to be reduced to 25.
I don't know that you actually knocked those out. I think that it actually turns out that we had already addressed those things in a manner that's consistent with what you're asking for. So, you know, for all practical purposes, even prior to this meeting, we've negotiated with you, not knowing what you're going to bring in here, on those issues that you bring forth. So those issues have been addressed, and now it's about one component of your request, and so you're going to hold it up because everything else that you've submitted has been met. Every other request that you've submitted, the age, I mean, everything else has been addressed, but this one component that we're leaving to the discretion of our very qualified and very capable and very experienced municipal judge, that we're leaving up to that person to decide, that's going to be the hanging point here now. I can't, I will not go, and if the mayor decides to sign this off because of, not sign off on this because of us allowing the judge to have his own discretion in this when he's more qualified than you or I to make that decision.
$500 we're talking about.
And if a person goes into an establishment and they get belligerent, and our police officers have to address that, and we're going to treat that the same way as if a person just decides not to do it. They're not belligerent. They don't fight our police officers. They don't cause problems for our police officers. They don't get disorderly. We're going to treat the two as the same, and there's going to be a difference of, what, roughly $24? I don't see that. I don't see that.
Sorry, no comment from the public. So we are, then I'm not sure where we are then, because this would require immediate consent, correct?
I personally am willing to, at this particular point, I'm not willing, I am personally at a point where I am, my desire is to put it in, we've already voted on this, to put it in the mayor's hands, and if the mayor decides to take that discretion away from the judge, then that's your call. I can, if that's what you decide to do, that's fine, but for us to quibble over the amount of the fine and to take that discretion away from our municipal judge, I'm not willing to do that. And I can't speak for anybody else on the council, but I am not willing to take that on.
I felt that we adequately addressed all those things previously.
I think that, and again, I can't say it more vigorously, we have, even prior to, and apparently, and I don't want to say don't want to say that you didn't read this, but apparently there was something where you were not comfortable or didn't fully understand what our intent was and what the ordinance actually said, and I think that every one of your measures has been met except that one, and so I think that there's time for compromise on your behalf now because all your other issues have been addressed, Mayor. So that's where I am. Thank you.
All right, so I'm assuming we will not get immediate consent for consideration of that. Herb, what process would you say? Now, we've already passed the existing, I believe we've already, as Mr. Jackson and Mr. Kirby have stated, conceded to the other changes. Well, they're really not changes. They're just, I guess, clarifications that the mayor had, except for the last one.
All right, if I understand where we are, you've adopted the ordinance, city clerk will present that ordinance if you adopt it to the mayor, and then he either veto it, amend it, or sign it. Not necessarily that order, I'm just,
What happens with the option to amend? Describe that, please.
he can present you at any time, here's what, that's what he's done.
I would say that's what he's done now. That's what he's done now. So basically, we're down to veto or approve.
He basically said, I want these amendments, and I will sign it today, is what he said. If not,
So as Mr. Jackson says, we have two options left at this point. Yeah, it's a yes or no
We have
option.
two options. Well,
we
the
don't.
first option is that
He
you,
does.
leave the ordinance like it is. The second option is that you consider amending the option, amending the ordinance that you just adopted, and then bring it back to the council, if they wish to, have immediate consideration, then vote on it. But you can do that at any time with any ordinance, I'm not trying to. But you gotta give, if you're gonna do that, of course, you have to do it at a notified, publicly, given notice of that meeting. So it's gotta be done in a council meeting. You've gotta give at least 24 hours prior notice of such.
So you're saying all three options are still open and have to go through a process?
All three options.
No, what you're saying is it was passed 4-1, and it will go to the mayor now, and he can either veto it or he can sign it. And,
Or he can amend it. And I'll say this for the record then, and I've tried to make this as clear as I possibly can, but I'm just going to say it for the record and make it as clear as I possibly can. If we do this, I will not vote for immediate consideration. We will have to do this at a regular, it will have to be introduced, and I think that if this falls back on a situation where we are quibbling over the amount of the fine, then it falls back. We have presented an ordinance that is very consistent with what other communities have done. And the fine amount is not excessive. I think
$500?
it's not excessive for someone who, all you've got to do is comply.
Yeah, just bring it down to a reasonable 25.
But all you've got to do is comply and you pay zero.
Well,
But again, Mayor, please, I'm sorry, again, Mayor, we, the council, you, do not have that discretion. That is a municipal judge, Judge Cook. That is his discretion.
Yeah, but if there's a cap, It's just a cap.
But that's a
is
state
correct.
cap, that is
That
a
is
cap
correct.
put
It's
in
a
by the
nice way
state.
of raising, it's a
Well,
nice way of taking, really what it's doing under this thought process is really taking the resolution that's currently in place, okay? That's what's in place right now, is a highly recommend. So now you've gone to mandating, but you're really not hitting the citizen or the guest that's visited our community with some possible.
This council would not do that anyway, Mayor. The municipal judge has that right.
Paige, I understand that.
Yes, sir. And there's no getting away from that. We cannot mandate that. That
But
is
you can
his.
reduce the level down.
Please allow me to give a clear picture on this, though. Hang on a second. Let's presume for a moment that Charles Kirby is a citizen, decides he doesn't want to comply and goes into whatever restaurant or whatever. And that nice police officer taps me on the shoulder and says, "Sir, you must leave." And I say, "I'm not going to leave." I'm already in front of the judge, who's probably at that point destined in front of the judge. And because I refuse to leave, he still has the $25 discretion on that, or $1, or whatever. But I'm probably already facing other charges, including trespass at that point, which are going to have fines to them. So we're not talking about $500 on one thing there. He might find $1 there, and he may have $500 on other charges.
Or it may be return offender.
That's correct.
One more thing, I want to make sure I'm not giving you all the options. The other option obviously is if someone on the council would introduce or take what the mayor has suggested, adjust it, and introduce an amendment to your ordinance to adopt. You have that option. We're not giving any consideration. I don't want to leave out that option. You have that option if you want to present an ordinance that would amend however you choose, but once you've already adopted.
And I don't disagree, we could do that, Herman, but
I'm not saying that.
I know you're not suggesting that, you're just giving us our options, but the fact of the matter is that Judge Cook can make that adjustment if he chooses to, and that's, you're exactly right. But the discretionary aspect and component of this is that Judge Cook can make that adjustment. And again, I don't know that any of us, and I don't know that Mayor, you feel that Judge Cook is not capable of doing that. So I don't think that any of us feel that he's going to be abusive in any sort of way, but I do think that he has that discretionary ability, and he will use that wisely. I am ready to move on with this. Again, I don't know where we go from this other than to.
Well, the mayor's free to give us something to consider in the future, and that's where we are, in my opinion.
I agree with that. I think we can always take input on this, and we can always look and review things that are added to this. And if we do that, I think we're doing what we're supposed to do. If the mayor brings something different at a different time, I don't have a problem at all with that. I don't.
Offer something different.
May I interject something
Yes,
as a
but-
compromise?
Mr. Earp?
What if we were to say that unless the incident involved an uncooperative person the first time an individual is brought, the maximum, it's still his decision, the maximum is $25 for the first time.
I'm not opposed to the first time being a maximum of 25, but then still not limiting it to 500. 500 would be the limit after that first offense.
But
I'm just asking
Chuck,
if that would be acceptable to the mayor as a compromise.
Councilman Artie would be.
So the first time 25, but then anything after that could be up to 500?
To the judge's discretion, yes.
As a
Well, then,
matter,
I'm going to come back and say, this is how I'd like to see it. The first time is a warning. And then you can go to the 25, and then you can go to the 500 max. So
I'm fine.
therefore, with the
I was
warning,
just trying.
I'm fine with that too.
a warning, an officer can give a verbal warning. Therefore, it does not have to clog up our municipal system. And then if they get a second, that will be then going to court.
Well, that's fine, we can put that, but once it gets to the municipal judge, he needs to, at the discretion, it's okay to say, if you're recommending on the first, they get warned.
Okay?
But what she's saying is that it not actually have to go to municipal court.
That's right.
It's a warning from our police officer, it's recorded,
I think the police chief's already made that very clear.
Yeah.
Perfect.
That's what's going to happen.
it's recorded, and I think that even more so means,
It doesn't require you to do anything in ordinance, but if it makes people feel that's fine, we can go upstairs and write that in.
but that even more so meets what Councilman Ard presented as $25 initial fee. That, I mean, Chuck, do you agree or disagree that that even more matches what you were saying, that it's not even a $25 fee, it's a warning the first time?
Yeah, I'm fine with that. All I was trying to do was to see if there were, if there was a way for the public to realize that, gee, I'm going to court and I could be subject to a $500 fine. And this way, I have no problem with a warning, then a maximum of 25, then judge's discretion.
And I'll sign that today. We'll have an ordinance.
So, wait a minute, are we saying warning and then the judge's discretion at 500?
Warning, 25.
So what Mr. Ard has suggested, that you do the warning, max of 25 for a second offense, and a third offense would be max of 500.
Okay, I'm confused
Discretionary.
now. Okay, I will not oppose that, but I'm still confused because you said $25. Mr. Ard presented $25 as an initial. You said that you were okay with that, and then $500. Ms. Bibby presented a warning, which is even better than $25, and now we're gonna add a third step. I don't understand that. The first step should be the warning, in my opinion. I'm not gonna oppose that, but the first step, this is splitting hairs. It really is.
Mr. Ard, are you okay with that
Yeah,
suggestion? First offense is a warning, second offense will stay as written, that up to $1 to $500 fine with judge's discretion.
I'm not trying to.
I am,
I want to make sure.
I am okay with that.
Okay?
If I show up at municipal court, the judge has to give me a warning. Is that what we're saying?
No, what we're saying, and correct me if I'm wrong, Ms. Bibby, if a police officer has someone out there and there's a situation in a Walmart, let's just throw Walmart out there, in a Walmart, and the police officer says, you've got to leave, and, that you refuse to leave, or they have you to leave, unless it becomes a disorderly conduct or a trespassing situation, that initial interaction is a warning. And that takes care of the mayor's situation where we were going to do it for $25. And then if it becomes a habitual, not even habitual, but if a second occurrence, goes to the judge. And then it's the $25, I mean, not $25, but the $500 discretionary range that the mayor, that the judge has, if I can speak. Twice.
First time the officer will warn you, citation or
No, we're taking that one out. It would be, the second offense
We
would
need to
be
get that
$1
muted.
to $500 with the judge's discretion.
So basically, the officer gives you a warning.
Yes.
If it happens again, you come to court and the judge has the ability or discretion to fine you from $1 up to $5, option, you can say no fine.
And in my mind, that actually even, where the mayor has said a $25 and he was okay with the initial $25 and then it could accelerate from there, that even extends that. When we just give a warning initially, that extends that. It makes it even,
I'm not the quickest type, but I'll be like, I'm not gonna be for good. The first time it's an officer warning, second time it's exactly what you got in the ordinance present.
Correct.
All right, I'll be right back.
And let's just double check to make sure there's nothing else you
Well,
need to
I'm
correct.
sorry.
Are we finished, are the others, everybody okay with the others? So really the only one we are changing is
I
this
guess
one?
the true question is, Ms. Bibby, and I didn't mean to interrupt you,
No, you're fine.
is that the compromise that will get this thing signed today by the mayor?
Yes, it is. It's
Okay.
better than what I was proposing.
Right.
It's absolutely better. Thank you.
But that's with immediate consent, immediate consideration, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
So we plan to recess and reconvene rather quickly?
Why don't we do, we can vote now, can we not?
10 minutes, I'll be back.
Okay.
Well, it may be that he needs to update it, then we can all review it and the general public can review it.
The
Yes.
police department is like keep a record of those that they give a warning to.
Yeah.
So that's part of the concern.
That was,
Sure.
if you don't mind, let me grab it to Judge Cook or Ms. Jessica to see how we're gonna do this. I think what we have to do is we still have to put the warning in the system.
You
or
do.
Make it to them and we have to label it. They should be able to keep up with it, but we need to verify they can keep up with our warnings.
They do that,
Otherwise, the
they do
judge
that
might not have a
with
way to
speeding
know.
and running
This
stop
is
signs
what
now.
I'm saying.
Yes, sir.
Can we do a 5 or 10?
Yeah, we'll do a 10-minute recess, but I've already spoken with them and they can do that, yes, sir.
Okay, I just-
But you're more than welcome to go chat.
I'll be back as soon as, be right back. So I
We'll be back in 10 minutes, thank you.
I'll be back.
Would you like to change?
Ordinance is punishable by an initial warning by law enforcement. After the initial warning, the next violation will be punished by a fine of not less than $1 and not more than $500 at the discretion of the municipal judge. All court costs are hereby waived on the first offense brought before the municipal judge. Herman, that is the only change, is that correct?
That's all I had time to do.
Have you decreed we're back in session?
We never went out, actually.
All right,
Stacy,
that's-
do I need to
that's-
declare we're back in session? We never went out of session. We took a recess, but we are back
Well,
from
that's what I mean,
recess.
recess
We
over.
are back from
Now you're
recess.
back from recess.
You're back.
We are back from recess.
All right.
And let's go ahead and ask the mayor publicly before we even take a vote on immediate consent. Is this acceptable to you for a signature today?
Yes, Council President.
Thank you. I'll entertain a motion for immediate consent on ordinance 2044-19A.
Make a motion.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Jackson and a second by Mr. Kirby for immediate consent. Roll call.
Bibby.
Aye.
Ard.
Aye.
Jackson.
Aye.
Hill.
Aye.
Kirby.
Aye.
Immediate consent is approved 5-0. Now we have the ordinance itself, ordinance number 20-44194A. Again, only the amended part A8, that again, failure to comply with this ordinance is punishable by an initial warning by law enforcement. After the initial warning, the next violation will be punishable by a fine not less than $1 and not more than $500 at the discretion of the municipal judge. All court costs are hereby waived on the first offense brought before the municipal judge. Do you have a motion to adopt?
I just want to make sure to clarify.
Yes.
This will become the ordinance if adopted.
This will be the ordinance, yes, sir.
So this, the whole ordinance.
Do you have a motion on ordinance 20-4419A?
So moved.
Do I have a second? Do I have a second for the motion?
Second.
Okay. All right, roll call, please.
Bibby.
Aye.
Ard.
Aye.
Jackson.
Aye.
Hill.
No.
Kirby.
Aye.
Ordinance number 20-4419A is approved with a vote of 4-1. Have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Spur, do I have a second? Mr. Jackson? Do I have a second too? Thank you.